Hello, this is Sculpture 2. This is your stained glass project. It's a stained glass box or sculpture. So on this one, it's a continuation on what you learned in Sculpture 1, which is just creating, a simple design that's a flat, and just learning how to cut glass, how to grind it down, how to solder, and all that stuff. So you have a lot of experience underneath your belt. So you're ready for that next step. And on this one, it's again, you kind of have options because there's just so many things that are out there. So I'm getting more into trying to give you different paths you can kind of go down on these kind of projects. So on this one, the point of this one was to try to learn and deal with how to take stained glass, create a shape out of it, and solder it together at angles. So I have an example here. This is just a box. It has all the measurements written on here exactly, but this is kind of the box that you can make if you want to, in terms of dimension, and then you also make a lid for it. So a box has, four, five, six different sides. So you would have to make six different pieces, and they would be, the design that's in the box itself. They would be pretty simple. Like you wouldn't go crazy with it. However, typically the very front of the box should be a little more ornate, or the lid should be a little more ornate. Um, and and I want you to kind of run your design idea by me. Um, the other option that you have is, and here's an example of it, and you'll watch, how to make a stained glass bird on there. It sounded like you would just do the bird, but there are lots of things you can kind of do with that. So obviously that's 30 minutes long. I mean, you don't watch the whole thing. You kind of skip ahead and watch a little bit, but you need to choose on which one you want to do with. Um, so looking at, down below, here's your box size. Um, front and back, there's 12 squares, 3 inches by 24 squares, which is 6 inches, and that's the quarter inch, what's that called? Grid paper or graphing paper is what that's kind of talking about. So it's a lot easier for design when you draw on graphing paper. Um, and then the bottom, and it says optional lid. So maybe I'll cut you some slack then and just make that optional. But we do have hinges and everything, so it's not terribly bad learning how to do that. So looking up here, the basic directions, develop a plan. If you decide on a 3D sculpture, you're looking for something with 20 pieces minimum. And it should be a three-dimensional object. I want you to construct it out of foam core. This is made out of foam core first. So you really have a good idea on how you're going to put it together, because you can't attach, if this is a piece of glass, and you want to attach something directly on that, you cannot attach solder onto glass. You have to have a seam there for them to be able to hit each other. And the thickness of this is usually about the thickness of the glass, maybe a little thicker, for it to work. But I want to kind of see your design for you to kind of come up with something that's three-dimensional. Okay. Um, and then the box, draw measurements out on the grid paper, develop a 20-piece minimum design. So kind of the same thing. But you're not to exceed 6 inches in any direction. So like this is 3 inches by 6. So this 6 inches, I don't want you to make a box necessarily this big, just because it gets down to how expensive stained glass is. But again, there's always exceptions. If you have a pretty darn cool design and you sell it to me, it's like, yeah, okay, fine, you can do that because it's awesome. While if you have something that's just super plain, it's like, well, let's try to find something a little bit smaller, or see if you can kind of impress me. Um, and it gives you some other direction about soldering, all that, because you always kind of solder all the pieces first, and then you solder and you piece them together. So your piece again is something that is either a box or something three-dimensional. So you can take it to the next step. Um, Other than that, looking at grading, stained glass project, very little gaps between pieces. The glass grain is still going in the correct direction. You got to be careful of that. Matching copper foil, you have that silver back, that black back, and that copper back. So if you use that cathedral glass, you really got to make sure you're paying attention to that. And remember, we do have that patina. So if you wanted to age your copper, so the copper turns black right away, you just ask about it. So other than that, again, just shoot me an email if you have any questions. Come up with some cool designs, and good luck on the project. Thanks.